Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. This is Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Mentor Select serves parents who are raising teens. Every week, Derek interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. All while parenting them to be successful adults, focusing on social and emotional development, something that's left out of the classroom, but not in ours. Be sure to subscribe, share, and rate. This is Mentor Select, and this is your host, Derek Phillips.
Parents, you're in for a great treat today. We have Tashara Oliver, who is a campus missionary intern at Texas A&M. Welcome, Tashara.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Glad you can take time out of your busy day to join us on the Mentor Select podcast to share your invaluable insight into the college world.
Yeah. And I just graduated, so this will be fresh information.
Awesome. So where did you graduate from and what was your major?
So I graduated from Texas A&M, which is where I am located currently. And I graduated with a degree in environmental geoscience, which is a pretty oddball degree. Most of the time, whenever I would explain that to people or say that to people, it would require further explanation.
Right.
I think the most common response I would get is like, "Oh, is that like with rocks or like trees or something?" Like, well, kind of.
Sort of. Yeah, I could say you're the first geoscientist I've met.
Yeah,
so.
sort of.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty small college, so.
All right. So, Tashara, can you tell us more about what's your role as the campus missionary intern? What does that entail?
So basically, what a campus missionary intern is I don't know how much information people know about in general missionaries, but basically a campus missionary intern works for a local Baptist student ministry. Okay. So there's Baptist student ministries all over the state of Texas at different universities. So there's one at A&M, which is the one I work at. There's one at UT. There's one at, Baylor's a private school anyway, but they have them all over the state of Texas. And so basically a campus missionary intern is responsible for discipling and mentoring students. So they really stress that they want us to meet up with at least a couple of students per week. They don't give us a specific number, but that's something that's very important. So they want us to be really involved and in touch with the students there. We help facilitate and plan different events that the BSM does. So, for example, my BSM has something called Vision Lunch every Wednesday, which is basically a free lunch. Okay. And it's a lot of people come. There's at least like 150 people that come every
free lunch is an easy sale
so we
to
have
college
to help,
students.
It's very much an easy sell. So we help plan that and set that up every week. So that's essentially what it is. There's a lot of administrative stuff as well that just kind of like changes depending on the week. But essentially that is what a campus missionary intern is.
Awesome. Sounds like a cool job. Now, while you were attending Texas A&M, did you go through that program as well? And did you have basically a mentor through the program, through the BSM program?
Through the BSM, yes. So basically, I was very heavily involved at the BSM while I was in college, and there's really a lot of opportunity for growth in your faith there. And there's really a lot of upperclassmen and older students that are really willing to step in and really invest in your life and kind of walk along with you and kind of show you like, this is how I do this, and this is how I navigate and handle this. For a Bible study, like I wasn't going there for anything else but that was something that I was able to find there.
Oh, that's great. All right. So I guess the first question with the most pressing issue that the world's dealing with is with COVID-19. So how has
Yeah.
I guess the university, Texas A&M, adapted to that, and how are the students adjusting?
Yeah, so that was a really hard thing, especially because for the BSM, pretty much everything is in person, and it's not just, oh, one or two, but it's fairly large groups of people. And so that was a very steep curve we had to kind of adjust to, of switching from everything being in person all the time to being online, and how can we still have some of the same things we offer students, but
Right.
through a computer screen. And it's funny because we were actually coming from a spring break mission trip whenever all of this happened. And so that next week we had to kind of scramble to figure out how we were going to do everything. But basically what we ended up doing, how we adapted to that, is we have our Bible studies every Thursday, and we have usually about 20 different groups to make them small enough for people to really get to know each other. And
Okay.
so those all got moved to Zoom. So that was fine. That was easy. But there was just certain stuff we couldn't do, like the free lunch I mentioned. That was just something we kind of just had to stop because there wasn't really a way to transition that to
Right.
online. We offer English classes for international students, and so that was something we were actually able to transition to Zoom classes that actually worked out really well. And we were actually able to get in more international students than usual sometimes, I guess because it's more convenient for them.
Right.
But that was something that was handled really well. And I think our students really adapted and really just kind of like kept going with the change very, very effectively. And of course, it was disappointing, but
Right.
we really saw a lot of our student leaders really take initiative and be proactive in keeping their groups going that they were leading for Bible study, and making sure they were checking in on the people in their groups and doing all of that communication. So we really have awesome student leaders. And so that was really a great help.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. And certainly the younger generation,
Yeah.
they're definitely good at adapting, and especially incorporating technology. So
Yes, very much.
probably was easier for them than some of us older folks. Definitely. So Tashara, like I say, as far as our parents, a lot of them, maybe their teens are preparing to go to college, or just they want to try to get ideas of what they can do to better prepare their teens for that transition into the college world. What are some things that you see as far as, I guess, comparing the students who come in as freshmen that are prepared to make the transition smoothly versus the ones that really struggle that first year?
I would say some of the biggest things would be, one, being able to manage time well, and also being able to manage disappointments well. I think those two things can very easily trip up students that are coming into college, especially if they're coming from a high school where they didn't really have to work as hard at managing their assignments and organizing that. And so coming to college, it really is, it's a learning curve with that, because you have all of these different assignments. Like a professor gives you a syllabus at the beginning of the semester, and they're like, these are the dates, and that's it. Like, there's no one reminding you, really. There's no one, sending you an
Yeah.
email. It's like, hey, make sure you turn this in. Like, if you miss a date, that's just kind of on you.
Welcome
So
to
that's something
adulthood.
welcome to adulthood. And I remember one of the first things I would do at the beginning of every semester was take all of my syllabi and just go through and write down every single due date I had. And it would take maybe an hour or two, because it just took that long to rewrite all of that. But that really was helpful to really be able to see all of my work down on paper.
Yeah.
And on the managing disappointments thing, is freshman year of college, especially, students see a lot of just change in how they perform on tests and how they study. And so sometimes you maybe don't get the grade you feel like you deserve or wanted on a test because you studied for it for like 2.5 weeks and you got maybe a 70, and you're like, okay, what happened? But you can't take that and just say, oh, well, then I'm just not going to study next time, because what's the point? Because then that's going to be even worse.
Right.
So being able to handle things not going the way you want them to or expect them to, and still being able to go on from that and still be proactive and still be just good in how you organize yourself, I think.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important. I guess what are some strategies that you see students use to manage disappointment well?
I would say one of the biggest things I see, in all honesty, is seeing like friend groups, like support groups that a student has to be able to go to. And if they're in the same major, then talk through and go over exams together, and talk about why did I get a 45 on a test I studied for like a month for, or something like that. Just being able to kind of vent to other people and then for them to encourage you and then be able to bounce back from that is something I've seen that has worked really well to be able to allow a person to handle disappointment. Because I know sometimes individually it's a little harder to bounce back from hard things like that. And so having a really solid group of people around you, I think goes a long way to being able to handle disappointment.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And just letting you know that you're not alone and just having that people that you can confide in and be a shoulder to cry on if you need to.
Yeah.
It's certainly therapeutic and can just let you know, hey, got to keep going, can't give up.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. So with Texas A&M, I haven't had the pleasure of visiting there, but I know it's a large university, lots and lots of students. What are, I guess, some distractions that you see a lot of students struggling with, and how are they managing them?
So Texas A&M is a very large campus. I think it's definitely top 5 in the nation. I could be wrong about that, but our stats are growing up like every year, it seems like. But one of the biggest distractions at A&M, I would say, are organizations, because I love how many organizations we have to choose from at A&M, but they also can very much take up a lot of time.
Right.
Especially what ends up happening is freshmen enter college, just super excited about getting involved in everything, and they try to pile on 5 time-intensive organizations on their plate in addition to having school and maybe a job. And they get burnt out within a month and a half of their first semester. And so choosing well and choosing effectively of like, what do you want to get involved in and how far do you want to get involved is super important. Like I know for me, whenever I came to A&M, I chose the BSM pretty much in one other student organization, and I said those are going to be my 2 that I'm going to devote time to outside of class.
Right.
So I didn't want to have every single second of my week be devoted to either schoolwork or like being in a meeting or whatever came with being in an organization. So that's what I would say is one of the biggest distractions at A&M specifically. It's just, we have so many.
Yeah, this is some good insight, because I can see how you can quickly get overwhelmed and just stretch yourself too thin by trying to do everything, be everywhere.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. Now, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the student leaders within BSM really stepping up and taking initiative to keep their groups going and things like that. I guess can you elaborate more on just how you all, I guess, empower student leaders to step up and just be in those leadership roles, and what's the impact of that?
Yeah, so we really have a really awesome group of students. Something we do at the beginning of every school year is we have a leadership retreat before the semester even starts, really before Howdy Week. So we have a thing before the semester starts called Howdy Week, which is where there's all of these like events, and that's when organizations are really coming out to try to like recruit freshmen, and there's like free food, lots of fun stuff. So we have a leadership retreat the weekend before that, and we just take a couple of days to really equip students on how to share the gospel and how to do that well. on what even is the gospel, on like how to handle conversations with different types of personalities. And then we do breakout groups where they can do like a little role playing and stuff like that. So we take time before we even dive in to the school year to really give them some sort of training on how to handle leadership and to go over expectations. And something else we do is we have each semester really where I think leaders kind of take ownership of their groups, because they get to kind of decide what they do for fun and what kind of activities they do or what things they want to say and encourage their group with. And so especially in the fall, we really see leaders step up and kind of start becoming their own group with that. And as far as like recruiting leadership in the first place, our BSM director personally calling students to talk with them about what their interests are, where their desires are for leadership, and to try to find a place for them for that. And that usually goes really well, because students are like, well, I don't really know if I want to lead a Bible study, but I really, really love being a student server at Vision Lunch. Like, I want to do that. Okay, cool. You can do that. That's awesome. And you can also help with like the food serving at other events we do. So we really try to like be tuned in to what students are interested in and find that role for them for that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And that's really some good things that parents can incorporate at home by just being really in tune with their teens, listening to them. Hey, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? Just giving them that level of, I guess, counter empowering them to kind of take lead. And then also, I like how you mentioned about just role playing different type of scenarios and how to respond in different situations. I think that's something that is also a good approach for the parents can do with their teens, and just prepare them for situations they likely are going to encounter, whether it's in high school or in college. I think that better helps them react and not have to just respond in that moment. They've kind of rehearsed it and prepared.
Yeah.
So I like that. Indeed. And then another thing I know, probably top of mind for parents, one of the biggest concerns is college is expensive. Handling the debt, as far as student loans and things like that. What's some advice in that area as far as keeping debt down?
Yeah. So for me personally, Scholarshop was really a big help for that. So my senior year of high school, we had a college advisor, and he honestly did a really good job of taking each student and saying like, here's some scholarships that I know you'd probably be a great fit for. And so Scholarshop was one of those that he personally took like me and like a group of students are like, hey, like if you guys like have time to apply for this, apply for this. And so that's how I ended up getting the Scholarshop help. And they were really a big help financially, because they help a lot with the non-tuition expenses, which I feel like don't get talked about enough, because even if all your tuition is covered, you still have like groceries, and you still have, if you have a car, gas, and you probably want to hang out with friends every so often. So there's money for that. And so that really helped with that side of things for it. But as far as like overall college expenses, I would say be really, really just like pragmatic about how much debt you think you will be able to handle post-college. Because I think what ends up happening a lot is students go to college and they just kind of pick a degree and don't really do a lot of research on it, and end up racking up $50,000 in debt that the job they might enter in immediately after college won't do, something like that, something crazy. That's exaggerated. But I think being realistic about what is a good amount of debt that you can handle post-college, I think is really important. And if parents are going to be involved in that, being specific about, okay, we're willing to contribute this much to helping you cover your college debt, or you should cover all of it, but we'll help you in other ways, like we'll pay half your rent or something like that, I think is really important in keeping debt down, and also being very, very careful about what loans you take from where, because I know a lot of like banks have private student loans that they offer, and I know those usually come with higher interest rates,
Right.
and just a lot of other hidden tape that isn't really shown expressly. And so just being specific and choosy about what kind of loans you take, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, really good tips. And one thing I love about Scholar Shot is they focus on it really helping the scholars set expectations, and then also focus on just those career ready degrees. So as you mentioned, just really thinking about, hey, how much money am I going to make? And then is that return on investment worth what I'm going to invest? Yeah. I think that's really good. Now, are you aware of, like, I guess, other organizations or websites, just a resource for parents that will make it easier for them to kind of search for scholarships that their kids may qualify for?
So remembering my scholarship search from high school, something I did that I think was even more helpful than the online databases is I went to a bookstore and I bought a scholarship book, like a physical book, which is crazy, right?
It's pretty thick, huh?
And I just very thick. And I took maybe an hour each day after school to kind of go through it and say like, oh, okay, I could apply for this one, or like, not that one. I feel like that there's no point in applying for that one. Because what ends up happening with the online scholarship databases is that's where literally the whole country is going to look for their scholarships. And so it's just very, very competitive. And there's definitely still great scholarships on there. And that's definitely like a supplementary resource to use. But something I found the most helpful was a scholarship book, because it's just less looked at and there's more specific scholarships that you maybe wouldn't find on the internet, or maybe on like FastWeb or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Good. Now, going back to your freshman year, transitioning to college, other than the time management, what was something that you struggled with initially?
I would say definitely the biggest struggle I had, aside from time management, was just having a group of friends, which sounds maybe trivial or something, but going to college, especially if you're going to a college where you don't know anyone else, it's really hard to go from knowing your entire high school class or half of them to going to somewhere where you know nobody. And that's really intimidating. Right. I really had to deal with a lot. My freshman year of college is being willing to put myself out there in different events I would go to, and being willing to actually let people like get to know me and to get to know them in return is something that's, I think, really, really valuable, especially for freshman year, because that's where you're going to be meeting a lot of new people like all the time, is your freshman year. And so that can be kind of discouraging, especially if you enter college and you're like, oh, I don't have like a best friend by day 2 of college. Like, what's happening? Because that's how the movies show it, is you move in and like your roommate is like your BFF that you have been looking for all your life. Whenever it usually goes like, oh, my roommate's kind of weird actually. So
from 2 different worlds.
yeah, like, oh wow. So I think that's the biggest hill to get over, is like, okay, like you're gonna find your group of people. It might not be within a week or even a month maybe, but you'll get there, and that's something you kind of just have to go through, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. It's really, it may on the surface may seem trivial from the outside looking in, but yeah, that's something that I'm sure a lot of students struggle with, and it can be intimidating and depressing. So it's something that, yeah, can't take for granted, and just, like you said, know that hey, you're going to find your tribe ultimately. It just may take some time. So what helped you feel more comfortable to just put yourself out there and take that initiative to meet people?
So definitely at the beginning, that was something I was not comfortable with, because throughout high school, I was a pretty reserved person, I would say. And that's still part of my personality, but I think because of college and because of my position at the BSM, I literally have to meet people all the time. So that's
It's your
just something
job.
I'm used to now. Yeah, it's literally my job to talk to people, random
Yeah.
people. So that's just something I'm comfortable with now. But definitely at the beginning, it's scary. But something that really helped me was getting involved in an organization that was specific to my college. So I was part of a geoscience organization, and then being at the BSM, because that's already a shared thing in common you have with somebody versus a random person you meet on campus that you maybe know nothing about. But at least if you meet a person in class, or if you meet a person in whatever organization you're in, there's already one thing you guys have in common. So that kind of makes it a little easier to get conversation going, is what I would say. And then from that, you become more comfortable with meeting other people, like outside of those things and outside of class and outside of organizations. Like maybe on the bus, I had to take the bus to campus. So
Okay.
every day I would take the bus to like meet a new person, and that was really fun. So yeah, I would say that really helped a lot, is meeting people first in organizations and then in like class and just things like that.
Yeah, certainly a great place to start, where meeting people you had those shared interests. That makes it easier. Indeed.
Definitely.
Now, another thing that's usually top of mind for parents when their teens are going off to college is college safety. What are some things that Texas A&M does to ensure that students are safe while on campus, and for those living off campus? Yeah.
Yes. So Texas A&M takes safety very seriously. And I'm sure all colleges do this, but I know that whenever there's like a violent report to the campus police, they send an email to your student account. And so you get the little reports of like, oh, there was like reports of an assault on this location at campus at this time. And so you kind of get those just ongoing throughout the year. And something else they do is, I think the bus system really, really helps with safety because, one, it's convenient for students to get from off-campus housing to campus, but also, two, especially for if you're on campus late at night till 10 or 12 sometimes, the bus doesn't run till like 1 a.m. or anything, but it still runs at night. And I think that goes a long way with helping protecting students, and not having to walk into a parking garage at 9 o'clock at night where it's dark. So I think that goes a long way. And I think another thing I would say is the general, just like patrolling of campus police, I would say is pretty good, because you see them all the time. At least whenever I would drive, I saw them all the time. So
Okay.
that goes a long way with helping you feel safe. So those are the things I think Texas A&M does really well with keeping their students safe.
Wow. All right, cool. Now, as parents, I'm sure many of them have already done, if they have seniors, already done the college campus tours and things like that. But what are some things parents should be looking for, or questions they should be asking as they're doing those college tours or searching for colleges for their teens? So we covered the college safety and the debt. Any other things come to mind that maybe things that maybe parents overlook or the students overlook about colleges, and when they get there, they're like, oh man, this is not what I expected?
Yeah, I think looking at how many food options are available at whatever college your child wants to go to is definitely that. It may seem like something that's not super important, but then you get there and you're like, oh, I actually only have the cafeteria to choose from. Got it. Okay. Texas A&M has a really, really, really wide range of food options in like dining halls and everything. So I think that's something to like consider, is like, okay, like how many dining hall options are available and like where are they at versus where the dorms at, like how far of a walk would that be? Because that's going to be something that a student does every day, is you eat multiple times. And so if they're living on one side of campus and the only dining hall option for freshmen, that would make for just a very freshman year. So I think considering that is something that I feel is often overlooked. Maybe something else is how many areas there are to study and to lounge. And I know most colleges have they should have at least plenty of places for that. But oftentimes students prefer to kind of study in the place where most of their classes are. And so looking at those buildings and saying like, oh, okay, there's spaces for people to kind of just sit with their laptops or just read their textbook is something I would look at as well, because I know my college was one of the smallest at A&M, and so our lounging options near our classes was just not it wasn't great. So I think that's something to look at.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I can see how those things can be often overlooked, but it's very important. You just don't think about them until you need them.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to, I know you say you went through Scholar Shot, and just having that academic advisor helped a lot in terms of pointing in the right direction to apply for scholarships and things like that. Sounds like it maybe also served in a mentor role as well. If so, how did that help you with your transition?
Having an academic advisor, I think, is one of the most important things, because as I said, in high school, that helped a lot with pointing me to scholarships and help writing essays and all of those things. And so with Scholarship, also getting an academic advisor that was specific to you really helped a lot, because when you get to college, you also have an advisor, but really they're just for basically saying, yes, your schedule looks fine. That's cool. You'll graduate. That's pretty much their job as an advisor, just because they have so many students.
Right.
And many people don't even really see their advisors in person. I know the biology department at A&M is just so large that my roommates, they were biology majors, they would get like a different advisor every time, versus I had the same one throughout all of college.
Okay.
So just like things like that. So having an academic advisor that I knew I could trust and I knew was invested in me, that I could go to for, hey, like, I don't know what this thing on FAFSA, like, how do I fill that out? Or my college advisor told me this. Does that sound right to you? And
right,
like, yeah, that's great. Or actually, this probably makes more sense. Here's this website to help you, or this is probably what you should do instead. Really helped a lot.
I think it was really just good insight as well, because it lets parents and teens know that even when they get to college, just the value of having mentorship and that trusted advisor is still very important. It can make a big difference.
Yes, very much so. And something else I think that the mentorship at Scholarship really helps with is, you know, that you have a person that is plugged into what's going on in college, and also you can go to for guidance. Because I know for a lot of students that may be first generation college students that don't really have someone to ask advice for about college stuff, that really helps a lot. I was blessed enough to also have my older sisters that went to college.
Okay.
So they could help with questions as well. So that's something that is just really valuable. And really, it just also just kind of helps with morale to know that there's a person who wants to see you do well. That's not also your age and that isn't related to you.
Right. Yeah, definitely. You bring up a really good point as far as first generation college students. I was a first gen, and yeah, it goes back to feeling like you're alone. And if you don't have those mentors or just someone you can confide in that's not your peers, yeah, that can be intimidating as well. Just that whole new experience, uncharted territory. Well, Tashara, you've given us a lot of great insight and just valuable strategies, tips, and resources that parents can either use to start preparing their teens as they get later in high school, or for those teens who are getting ready to go off to college in the fall. They certainly can use a lot of the great insight that you provided. So, to get ready to wrap up this interview, do you have any closing words of advice for parents or future college students that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I would just say, for parents, just really showing your kids that you are invested in their interests and in what they want to do with their college experience, I think just really goes a long way with being involved in that process. And just really showing them that you're there for them, I think goes a really long way, especially with such a big change that college brings. And for high school students, there is just a lot of adapting that you'll have to do once you get to college. And not all of it is at once, but sometimes it can be overwhelming. But also, whenever you finish college, you'll see like where you started and how you finished, and you'll just see a lot of growth. And you really grow into a person that is really responsible for themselves throughout college. And I think that process is just really great to experience. And yeah, that's what I would say for parents and students.
Fantastic. Well, Tashara, how could the listeners get in contact with you if they want to learn more about Texas A&M and then also the Aggie Baptist Student Ministry?
Yeah, so I can be contacted at my email address. So it's Tashara Oliver at gmail.com, TASHARA Oliver with an O at gmail.com. And that's really my best contact. That can be my best contact if anyone wants to know more about Texas A&M or about the Baptist Student Ministry or just college in general. That is my contact.
Well, thanks again, Tashara. And yeah, just keep doing great things. Really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks for letting me spout off for 40 minutes.
No, you definitely gave us a lot of value, and yeah, that knowledge you have, just unique knowledge, because you just graduated and now you're in the role of actually the leadership role now, still working with students. So that's awesome. I know you're making a great impact, so keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You've been listening to Mentor Select. Mentor Select. Parenting teens to be successful adults. Hosted by Derrich Phillips. Raising teenagers is hard. Understatement of the century. We get it. That's why Derrich interviews leading experts that work with teens, educators, counselors, mentors, and authors to give you practical tips, strategies, and resources that you can incorporate immediately to better connect and understand your teen. That's why we do the show. Be sure to share Mentor Select with other parents of teens. Follow us on social media at Mentor Select to stay up to date on the latest tips, strategies, and resources for parenting teens. Send your questions and comments to Derrich at mentorselect.com. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes. Till next time, this is Mentor Select.